Jeff Jarrett's back with his new podcast for the second episode this week, My World with Jeff Jarrett, hosted by Conrad Thompson. And this week they were covering the time that Jeff Jarrett got fired on live TV by Vince McMahon. Of course, this was the simulcast where WWE had just purchased WCW out from under the nose of Eric Bischoff and was no longer going to be on TNT TV. Everything was going to Papa Vince, all the copyrights, the video library, and the wrestling contracts. The contracts, of course, held by WCW and not held by Turner. That's why you didn't see any of the big stars during the invasion angles, because they were all sitting at home on the couch with their feet up eating popcorn, watching it on TV, collecting a big fat Ted Turner paycheck. Well, in the very opening segments of the Monday Night Raw WCW Nitro simulcast, Vince McMahon took to Monday Night Raw and publicly fired Jeff Jarrett. Check out this clip.
That's right. Vince McMahon, I have purchased, I own my own competition. And tonight I have the ability to address WWF fans as to what this means. I have the ability to address WCW stars as to what this means to them. And yes, I have the ability to address WCW fans as to what this actually means to them as well. Tonight, at the right time, there'll be a special simulcast. And let me just say that tonight, for sure, one man will make history. And that's me, Vince McMahon. Now, as far as the Jeff Jarretts of the world are concerned, you know how Jeff spells his name? That's Jeff. Well, you know what? I would suspect that we'd spell it a different way after tonight. That would be capital G, double O, double N, double E. Gone.
And of course, Jeff Jarrett was standing there backstage watching on a monitor, watching the whole thing go down. What must he have been thinking, watching himself be fired on national TV? Well, check out this clip.
Maybe one of the most important shows in the history of professional wrestling. And it starts with the Overlord, the most powerful man in wrestling, ribbing the way you spell your name and publicly firing you. I think from the outside, we all thought, oh, remember when he held up Vince? This is Vince's receipt. Boy, you just got history coming and going, don't you?
In my, we'll call it ego. It takes ego to go around this for a thought, and maybe carried that with me, Vince is going to shoot an angle with me.
Okay.
It's all about money. When I heard that he went through all this, who'd he pick out?
Yeah.
I mean, who did he pick when you really drill it down? He can't fire me because I'm not hired. I'm getting paid through October, November, December, whatever it is. But no, who's he got a working relationship that drew money? And when I left in 99 was the hottest heel on the card. That's arguable sake, but a red hot heel. He's a business guy. Who can he take from this roster that he knows will do the job in spite of any circumstances, whether good, bad, or indifferent? My last night in 95, I did the job to Sean. I could have walked out beforehand, did the job to Sean and left. China, did the job to China and left. Who's willing to do business? He picked me to fire me. We're doing an angle.
Wow.
That's crazy. Only in the wrestling business can someone be fired on national TV from a different show, not even have power over Jarrett's contract, and Jarrett thinks it's a work and we're running an angle here. How crazy is that? Only in the wrestling business. Of course, Jeff Jarrett, one of those few people that Vince actually held a grudge against, and who could blame him? He walked out on Vince twice, not once, but twice. Second time, held him up for money. Yeah, I'm saying it. He held him up. I don't care what narrative Jeff's trying to push. He held him up. It's interesting that Vince singled out Jarrett specifically to just, of all the names on the WCW roster, in the opening segment of Raw, he's just, that Jeff Jarrett guy? Fuck him. He's out of here. And of course, as Jarrett said during the podcast, he had one of the Turner contracts. So Vince couldn't technically fire Jeff Jarrett. He just metaphorically fired Jeff Jarrett, as if to say, some of the WCW guys are going to be coming on over here, but one of them is not going to be Jeff Jarrett. Fuck that guy. That was Vince's way of just getting back at Jeff. And I don't blame him. If I was Vince, I would have fired shots at Jeff too, or just at the very least not signed him. But the fact that he went public with it and just made a show of burying Jeff Jarrett on national TV just goes to show how upset he was with Jarrett. You got to think, this was not even a couple years ago. This was less than 2 years ago that Jarrett walked out on Vince and held him up for money. So of course he was still hot about it. Of course he was still holding a grudge. And he had the power in his hands that day to do any goddamn thing he wanted to. Can you imagine how hard Vince's cock must have been when he picked up the tab for WCW to just buy them outright? His dick must have been so hard. What an exhilarating, fucking just amazing. Now, Bruce Pritchard has said on record that Vince really didn't sell it all that much, and it was just another business acquisition. But for my money, that really had to get Vince's cock hard. I bet you if the camera just panned below his face when he was cutting that promo on Jeff Jarrett, you saw a rock hard Vince boner dick just poking out of his khakis, right? Poking out of his slacks. Jeff didn't think much of it at the time. That's really interesting. At first he thought maybe Vince was trying to shoot an angle with him. And he realized, hey, nobody's calling me. So I guess fuck me, right? But he took it all in stride. He understood. He didn't really seem to care much. And he was just looking forward and looking to what his next move might be. And of course, we all know what his next move would be, which is the founding of a company that still exists to this day in one way, shape, or another. So good for Jeff on that. And this was a much better interview here. This episode, it seemed like him and Conrad kind of felt like a little bit more in rhythm. Like Jeff was starting to kind of get the feel for what this show's all about now, how he should be presenting himself. I'll tell you what, it was goddamn awful trying to get a soundbite out of this. Jeff rambles more than Bischoff. That's the problem I have with Bischoff's podcast. Besides the fact that it's always 2-3 hours, but the way he answers questions, it's almost impossible to sample a fucking soundbite out of it. The dude just fucking rambles and goes on fucking sidebar after sidebar, which I love as a listener. I'm perfectly okay with that because I learn more about the business that way when they go into sidebar. We don't want yes or no answers. We want a story behind the answer. Problem is, Conrad asks a question and I go, ooh, that'll be good for the podcast, and I'll hit record, and then fucking Jarrett takes 20 minutes to get to the goddamn answer, which just leaves me to fucking have to edit and sort through more clips and more shit and more junk. And Jeff, I'm begging you, just keep it short for just sound bites here and there. Give me the sound bite, then go on your sidebar. Of course, I'm just being selfish here. I love the podcast. It's better than last week's was because I think, like I said, I think Jeff's getting a little more comfortable already. So, hell, man, I think, the more comfortable he gets, I mean, he doesn't hold back. He's very open about everything that he wants to say. Most of you have heard the podcast already, I'm sure. I'm sure there's not too many of you that aren't listening to that are listening to this. But for those of you that aren't, add it to your rotation. I know Conrad's got a lot of podcasts. I know there's a million of them out there, and you got to get through mine first. I get that too. You have to listen to mine first, then the other ones. I understand you. I feel you. But make time in your day to listen to the Jeff Jarrett My World podcast. At least this episode. The first one, it was okay. There was a lot of good details in it, like information-wise, it was juicy and it was awesome, but I didn't feel the chemistry between Conrad and Jeff all that much. This one had much more chemistry between Conrad and Jeff. It wasn't so awkward. Not that the first one was super awkward. It was just, you could tell that it was their first time, and it's going to take a little while to get your feet wet on these things. So go check it out if you haven't already. And if you have, what are your thoughts? Let me know in the YouTube comments here, and we'll just keep moving forward here, covering this podcast and so many others.
Oh yeah, thanks for checking out the video. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like it if you liked it. Yeah, and you can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on the channel. Oh yeah, dig it.